The boyhood of Jesus. There were some wise men who lived a long way from Israel, far off in the east. They saw a star in heaven, which was a sign that Jesus had been born. They travelled hundreds of kilometres to try and see him. At last they came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews?" In those days, there was a very evil king named Herod, who ruled over the country of Judea, where Bethlehem was. He heard that a new baby had been born, who was going to be a king one day, but he did not know where he was. So he called for his priests and the teachers to come together, and he asked them where the king who God had promised to David was going to be born. "In Bethlehem," they said. God had prophesied that a governor would rule over his people Israel. He would come from Bethlehem. Evil Herod wanted his wise men to go to Bethlehem and find out exactly where the baby was. "And when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also." But this was a terrible lie. He really wanted to kill Jesus, so that he could one day be the only king all by himself. When the wise men went to Bethlehem, they saw again the star which they had seen in the east. It guided them to the very house where Jesus was, with Mary, his mother. They were very excited and happy. They bowed down before him to worship him and gave him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. But they did not go back and tell King Herod where Jesus was. God had warned them in a dream of Herod's wicked plan, so they hurried home another way instead. The angel of the Lord spoke to Joseph in a dream. "Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee out to Egypt, and be there until I bring you word." They had to get away before Herod could find Jesus and kill him. While it was still dark, Joseph took Mary and they travelled all the way to Egypt. There they stayed until Herod died. Then an angel told them that it was safe to come back to Israel, so they returned to live in Nazareth. As Jesus grew, he learnt everything he could about the Word of God. He was very wise, even when he was only young, and God was with him. Every year, Mary and Joseph travelled up to Jerusalem to keep the feast of Passover. Everyone would travel together in a big crowd. They would keep each other company and protected themselves from robbers and wild animals. One year, when Jesus was 12 years old, the family went as usual to keep the feast of Passover. After the feast, Mary and Joseph set off on a journey home to Nazareth. But Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. Mary and Joseph started their journey home, and they did not realise that he was missing until they'd gone a whole day's journey. They thought that he must have been with some relatives or someone else in the crowd, but he was not. Anxiously, Joseph and Mary hurried back to Jerusalem to look for him. After looking everywhere for 3 days, they came to the temple. There he was, sitting in the middle of all the wise teachers, listening to him and asking him questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at how well he understood God's law. He was only 12 years old. Mary asked Jesus why he had done this to them, as they had been looking anxiously for him everywhere. "How is it that you looked for me?" he replied. "Didn't you know that I must be in my Father's house?" They should have known that they would find him in the temple. Even when he was so young, Jesus cared more about God than anything else. So Jesus returned with Mary and Joseph to their home in Nazareth. He lived with them there and always did as they told him. He grew taller and wiser. God was pleased with his son as he grew up. While we are young, we must learn as much as we can about God. This will help us grow up to be more like Jesus, who always spoke the truth and wanted to serve and obey God his Father more than anything else.